Hey everybody, it's Aggie and welcome. This is probably one of the most important lessons in our Spring Floral Challenge class, and I'm excited about sharing this with you. So I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes to join us. I was trying to turn my light on and it didn't go on, and I don't know why. Oh, it is on. Okay, there. So good morning. Happy hump day. It's Wednesday. And as you're hopping on, please say hello. I am streaming on StreamYard, so if you haven't given permission to StreamYard, it's not going to show us your name, which is okay. But let us know your name if you're not, if it's showing up. Sometimes it just shows me Facebook user, so I may not address you by your name because I can't see it. So I am going to be talking about the one thing that your paintings are missing. And it's such an important thing. I can't wait to share this with you. I would love to hear your guesses. If you want to throw a comment in, share with me what you think your paintings are missing. Good morning, Shelley. Good morning, Teresa. Hello, hello. So here I am in my studio. I'm just going to be basically writing out stuff on copy paper, and I'm going to take photos of these and share them in the group. But if you want to write down notes for yourself, you can do that. Sometimes I think that writing out notes helps me retain information better. It involves my brain a little bit more. Jane says, what? Just got here. What we're talking about is the number one thing that your paintings are missing. For each of us, it's going to be a little bit different, but I bet you that some of the things that I talk about have been missing from your paintings. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. I would love to hear, though, drop some comments in there. First of all, say hello. Let us know you're watching. If you're watching on replay later, type in replay and I don't know, let us know what you think is missing from your paintings. I don't have anybody commenting on that yet. Okay, so I've been painting now. I want you to know I've been painting really all of my life. I went to art school and I studied design. I did not take painting at art school. I went to the American Academy of Art and I learned all about design. So guess what? That is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about design. So have you ever designed your composition? Have you ever done a thumbnail? Have you ever planned your painting? Or do you just dive in and start painting? Please comment below on that. Let me know. Did you just start painting because you're dying to paint? Hopefully you guys can all hear me, and hopefully, let me double check. Because I've got a few people that said hi, and then the comments kind of dropped off. So let me just double check. Let me know that you can hear me. Maybe you're all just thinking real hard. Okay, Shelley, apparently you can hear me. So Shelley says, I plan. And then my plan changes. Yes, exactly. Because we encounter problems, we encounter visual things that occur that we didn't foresee ahead of time, right? Jane says, plan. If it's a loose painting with glass, I sometimes just paint. Okay. Good, good, good. All right. So here's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about using a thumbnail. So let me just maybe split the screen here. And, you know, I'm going to be really honest. I've seen artists, I've taken classes. So I didn't study it in art school, but I took classes afterwards. So I took design and I worked as a professional artist, a graphic designer for 20 years. I was an art director. I led teams of artists. and really had a fabulous career, really loved it. But I missed the direct creative process. I wanted to paint. I just didn't think I could be a fine artist in 1982 when I got out of school and there was a recession going on and I was newly married and had to make some money. So, kind of dating myself, but that's my story, right? So I waited, until I was basically semi-retired to start really painting. And I took classes. And one of the things that a lot of these instructors said was to, do a value study, do a sketch, do a thumbnail. Did I do them? No. Let's raise our hand and be honest. Do you do those? Probably not. So what happens is if you don't do that, what can happen here, here's what I was thinking through, and this is what I'm going to go through with you. I'm going to do this with you again live, but maybe I should cover part of this up. So I don't want you to read ahead. The thing you should not do is to just start painting without any plan whatsoever. Because when you do a thumbnail, when you plan what you're going to be doing, hey, Michelle, hey, Donna says I struggle to find my own style. Finding your own style, in my opinion, that comes much later on down the road. You really develop your style on the way during the journey. That'll happen naturally. And Shelley says, Donna, I felt that too, but really just practice and paint and create. Your style will emerge. When you see exactly what I just said, when you aren't expecting it, it's kind of like finding love when you aren't looking. Yes, yes, yes. And that's been a catchphrase lately, finding your style. But honestly, it's more important to learn the rules, to learn how to design a good composition. The number one thing, the most important thing in making a successful and interesting painting is the design, the composition. It's more important than the paint colors. It's more important than the subject even. A good design is going to make a successful painting. You're better off with a poorly executed painting, like let's say it's just the paint strokes aren't real interesting and the colors aren't real beautiful. But if it's well designed, it's going to be a more successful painting than one that is executed well, but with a poor design. How often have you seen somebody do a really decent floral painting, but they didn't leave room at the bottom for the table and the bottom of the vase is cut off? You can tell, I can tell right away that they just started painting and didn't plan where they were going to position that vase, And I see that a lot. I see that a lot. Or maybe they started painting and it's smack dab in the center and it's just not visually pleasing somehow. It's like, oh yeah, that's pretty, but there's just something about it that's, I like it, but it's not my style, or it's not one that I would buy. That's the reason, is because the design wasn't well executed. So the thing you don't want to do, you don't want to just start painting. You want to plan it. You want to do a thumbnail so that you're going to see the problems, potential problems. You might not catch every single thing that's going to happen, and we'll talk about that. But you're going to see the problems and you're going to head them off. You're going to solve the potential design problems. Okay. So here's what we do to start it. I'm going to put this over here. So the first thing you need to decide on is what size is your painting going to be? What substrate are you going to use? You need to know the proportions, and you need to know the whether it's vertical or horizontal. So in this case, we know that we are doing a 12 by 16 and we're doing it as a vertical. And this is roughly a 12 by 16. I might be off a little bit, but you do want to get accurate proportions. So I guess what I could do you guys know the old trick of drawing a line from one corner to the other? I guess I'll use this for this. I'll waste this piece of paper. let's say this was my accurately measured, actually what I could do is 12 by 16. If I divide that in half, that would be 6 by 8, right? Half of 12 is 6, and half of 16 is 8. So if I go 6 by 8, that's how you keep that proportion, is from a diagonal line from one corner to the other. You probably knew that, but it's a good trick. So this way I'm going to draw the 8. So if I'm going to do a thumbnail and I want to get the exact right proportion of length, of width to height, this is what I would do. And now if I draw from corner to corner, so now we can see where I actually was off a little bit. So where that meets, my vertical actually should have been right here. Okay, so no biggie. Now I can take that exact rectangle, and that's what I'll use over here. My next one here. To make it quick, I'll just cut it out. Normally what I would do is probably go up to a window and trace it. Okay, I need my scissors. And it you know, it really is important to get the exact proportions for your thumbnail. That's why I'm taking the time to do this. Yeah, 3 to 4 is the ratio. Exactly. Jane. All right, so we're going to make a thumbnail, and we're just going to go over how to design a composition. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you, even though for this Spring Floral Challenge, you've got a tracer, it's designed for you. The reason why I want to share this with you is just in case you want to design your floral a little bit differently. Maybe you decide you don't want to do it vertical, you want to do it landscape. This way is called portrait, this way is called landscape. You would use these things I'm about to teach you to design your composition to work for that, what's the word again? Orientation, that's the word, orientation. Okay, so let's just roughly do it like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so there is my proportions, right? Now what you're going to do, we're not going to just start painting on this. We're going to do our little thumbnail right now. And what you want to do is draw your substrate proportions, length to width, make them accurate to the substrate that you're going to be using. And you're going to just divide this into thirds. And again, I'm just going to do it visually. It's about like, first I put a tick. Well, I guess I should, since we measured, let's just go ahead. So this is 3 3/4 divided by 3. 3.75 divided by 3 is 1 1/4 inches. So 1 1/4 inches. 1 1/4 inches. That's about 1 1/4 inches. Okay, now for my width. So those are going to be my horizontal tick marks. And for this way, it's exactly 2 3/4. So if you want to know what I'm using for my thumbnail, it was 3 3/4 high by 2 3/4 wide. And you can use that for your thumbnail. Then this tick mark is 1 1/4 inches. These are each 1 1/4 inches. And then for this, 2.75 divided by 3 is 0.916. I don't know what that is. I visually do it. Sometimes I'm better off visually doing it. I'm just going to use this, whatever this is. And then we're going to draw those lines on there. Okay. And I probably don't have it straight, but you get the idea. And don't make this too cumbersome. I want you to actually do this. So don't make it too hard for you to do. Don't make it perfect. A lot of times when I have to make something perfect, I don't do it. This is a tool for you to use to make it easy. And doing this is going to make the painting process more joyful for you, because you're not going to run into those problems that can feel unsurmountable and overwhelming. And you go, oh, well, I'm just not going to finish this. Raise your hand. How many times have you done that? I've done it millions of times. You're like, I don't know. It's too hard to figure out what's wrong with this. I don't like this painting. And you just set it aside and you never finish it, right? Do you do that? Okay, so we divided it into thirds. Now we're going to sketch. And here's the thing. So it's rule of thirds. The simplest design tool that you can use is the rule of thirds, okay? And this is such a common thing that it's even on your phone, at least on I don't have an Android, I have an iPhone. So when I have a photo that I want to crop, and cropping is a good method for you to get into. It's a fun thing to do. Go find yourself a good reference image or 2 or 3 or 10 of flowers in a vase and crop them with this rule of third in mind. And what you're going to find is that when you save that photo to your phone and you go to crop it, these ghosted lines appear. With the rule of third, ghosted lines appear when you go to crop it. That's how common this is, you know. So it's a very useful tool for you to use. Okay, what was I going to say? I had my notes. I want to make sure I talk about all the different things when I was planning this out. And I don't remember where oh, I know. I put that in my notes. Hold on. Let me go look at that. My notes. Okay. So first of all, let me just say, you always want to use reference photographs. Most of the time, photographs, they will not give you an ideal composition, an ideal painting. You know, you're going to need to take the pieces of some of the photographs and put them together and literally compose them into a painting, into a good design. And, you know, if you're dependent on copying photos or copying other artists' artwork, you're always going to struggle. It's always going to be a struggle. You are going to find much more joy and success when you take the photographs and compose them into a good design yourself, when you know how to do it. You'll always have a winner when you do it this way. So you can take a well-designed composition, and even if it's poorly executed, you know, even if you're, you know, let's say the brush strokes aren't that great, the colors aren't that beautiful. If it's a good design, it's still going to be a much better painting than if it's a poorly designed painting that's well executed. How many times have you done that? How many times have you you're working on this painting and this portion of it is really beautiful. You're like, wow, oh my goodness, this looks really great. And then you're working out the rest of the painting and the design just doesn't flow. It just doesn't look right. So you've got this good, really beautiful area, but the painting itself isn't somehow working. It's very sad when that happens. So we want to avoid that. We want a good design from the start. So the way to do that is to do a thumbnail, you know, and you'll discover these typical design issues, these problems that can come up when you're doing your thumbnail. Okay, so rule of thirds is what you're going to use to plan, to design, compose your painting. And you know, and as I said, it is so standard that it's even on your phone when you go to crop an image. Okay, so we're going to use this throughout the painting as well. We're going to take time to stop and come back to these original plans that we had. Now, as Shelley said, our plans might change later on, but we're going to try and stick to a few basic rules throughout the entire painting. Okay, so the number one thing I want you to do, and that's what I've got right here. So we divided it into the thirds. We're going to sketch our painting like I did here. We're going to start with the focal point. We're going to start with planning where our focal point is on this grid, right? And that's probably a biggie that is missing from your paintings. I see this every day. You know, I love scrolling through Facebook and TikTok and social media, and a lot of paintings that I see really do not have a focal point. Okay, Jane says, I don't have ghosted lines come up on my phone. Must be a setting I don't have on. What kind of, do you have an iPhone? It's when you use the crop tool. When you go to actually crop an image, that is when the ghosted lines appear. At least on my iPhone. Let me make sure that so here is a screenshot that I took. Oh, it's very hard to see the ghosted lines, but I actually took a screenshot of when I had my crop tool turned on to show you what it looks like on my iPhone. And I'll do it again on this one. Here's a photo that I took last night. I'm going to go to crop it, hit edit, oops, crop. And as soon as I touch this, the crop tool, see the grid lines, see the ghosted lines. It only comes up as soon as I start to crop it. Does that help? I'm gonna cancel that. Someone else is saying that they don't think they see that either. I should have asked my husband. He has an Android. I'm pretty sure. Let me just Google it really quick. Do Android phones have the, let's see, rule of thirds when you crop photo? Most Android smartphones have multiple aspect ratios available in the settings. When you either capture or edit a photo in a square aspect, the rule of thirds still applies. I don't know. How do I turn on rule of thirds on Android? You might have to turn it on as a setting on your Android phone. Oh, okay. Someone said, okay, I went to check and it's there. Good. Good. So, I mean, that just shows you how common it is, you know, that it's right there for photographers to use when they are composing a photograph. They use that they can use that rule of thirds right in their cropping when they're planning the best way to frame their image. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start. So rule of thirds, and I'm not gonna write all of this on here. I will give you these notes as a photo in the classroom after we're done. So I divided it into thirds. I'm going to start by sketching my design, and I want to decide, where do I want my focal point to be? And the rule that you want to use is that you want to have your focal point either near or on one of these grid lines. So it doesn't have to be directly exactly right on the line, but near it or kind of lining up with it on the line or near the intersection of these grid lines. So I'm starting literally right here with the center of this flower on this particular intersection, right? And this is going to be my focal point flower. Now the other thing, and you can see that on my tracer. Here's my tracer that I've given you in the classroom. You can see my focal point flower is very near to this intersection, and there it is. Now, what I want you to notice, I made these 3 flowers as a unit. These are kind of a cohesive threesome, and you do always want to be odd. It helps to be odd. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 5 flowers, and I've got 3 buds. These 2 count as 1 because they're going to be touching. So there's 1 bud, 2 buds, 3 buds. And so these 3 are going to have more visual importance than these 2 over here because these are getting farther away from my focal point flower. So I've got that one there, and I've got another one. So maybe it's slightly larger. Then I've got another one right about here. And I'm going to try to turn this one facing looking that way a little bit. So the trick to doing that is to put the center a little bit off-centered, like a little bit more of the petals on this side of the flower. And then here's my third one here, right? So these 3 are really touching, forming one mass, if you will. And that's another key word. We talk about masses, the visual mass, the visual weight of the subject versus the background. I'm trying to get a balance. So it's almost like 2/3. Let me cover this up so you're not distracted. The visual weight of my subject, it's a little bit more than 2/3 of subject versus background. See, the background is back there. You never want, here's one of the pitfalls with the rule of thirds. Some of the pitfalls that you can run into is, here I'm showing some pitfalls. If I didn't plan what I was doing, good morning, good morning. If I didn't really plan what I was doing, and how many times have you seen this painting where you've got the vase falling off the bottom because they just started painting and didn't really plan it? And what's happening here is that I use the rule of thirds, but my visual weight, it's exactly boom, boom, boom. I divided it into 3 stripes, and it's just kind of, it's okay, but it's not intriguing. It's not really that interesting. Same thing with this one. Here's my, I know it looks like a bowl of fruit, and it could be anything. It could be a bowl of fruit. It could be a vase of flowers, but I basically divided it into thirds, and it's boom, boom, boom. It's just not that interesting. It's okay, but it's just not that interesting. Here, I took the same thing and turned it into a landscape orientation. And again, it's only occupying the center 1/3. So it's boom, boom, boom. It's just not that intriguing of a design. So instead, if I were to think about the visual weight, you know, I can still use my rule of thirds, but instead, let's say I figured, okay, I want this thing, whatever this, to be the focal point. And I have to have my grid on here so that I know where that is, so that I know exactly where to place that item. It's going to be right here. It doesn't have to be centered right on it, but maybe it lines up, right there, right? And then I'm just going to continue. And, let's say I do want it to be wide like that. What I could do then is something like this. It's still kind of centered. Maybe it would be better to go a little bit wide or have it go off the edge. Now the visual weight is this versus this, the subject versus the background. So tell me which one is more interesting to you, this or this? Which is a better design? Obviously, in my opinion, this one is a much better design. So that's one of the pitfalls of rule of thirds, is that you don't want to go evenly space it. This happens a lot with landscapes. If you're doing a landscape, and you've got foreground, middle ground, and sky, boom, boom, boom. It's a boring landscape, right? Okay, so let's go back to what we were talking about over here. And we'll talk about other pitfalls that you might run into. So I've got my 3 flowers, then I've got one I intentionally made go off the edge, which is a nice idea to do. I've got one here. I've got space in between. That's another thing. I don't want to necessarily have all of them touching in the same way. I want to try making them different sizes. And so that's the main thing, is getting those shapes in there first. And then, of course, there's my vase. So my vase is going to occupy the bottom third pretty much. So we have it going like this and like this. And that is a lot more interesting. When I go to put the water line in here, I do not want to put the water line right here, because what would happen if I put my water line right here? Do you see what's happening? This amount of space and this amount of space is exactly the same. I cut it right in the middle. That's not good. You want to have it different. So I would rather have the water line up a little bit higher. So that's one thing that I foresaw could be a problem, right? Sometimes we just don't even think as we're painting. We get so into the painting that we might put our water line right there in the middle. And it's okay, but it's not as nice as if you just take the time to think a little bit and put it up a little bit higher. So tell me if I'm making sense here. I hope that I am. Okay, so what we are doing here is we drew our proportions on our substrate. We divided it into thirds with our grid lines. We're going to start sketching our focal point. So I started with my focal point flower, with that being positioned right on one of my 1/3 line intersections, right? That's going to be the most interesting part of my painting. And I'm going to teach you how to make that part the most interesting part by using color and value and things like that. But some of the things that we can do to make it more attention getting starts with the design. That's why we're talking about design first. So we're going to, and the most important thing too, with the rule of thirds, is that you want to avoid putting something right in the middle. You want to avoid putting your most interesting part of your painting right in that middle square, centered in that middle square. You don't ever want to do that. Good morning, good morning. So what I'm saying is I wouldn't want to put a flower smack dab in the middle of that grid. Let's come back over here. If this is my design, here's my rule of thirds. I'm not going to put a flower right here. All I have to do is scooch it over, Put it here instead. I mean, it's such a simple thing. Easy. And believe it or not, I've accidentally done that. I've accidentally gotten so caught up in painting other things that I have found several times that I've accidentally put something right in the middle, and you just don't want to do that. That's another little pitfall that can happen. Okay, so the things you want to avoid is avoid putting something centering right in the middle square, and avoid 3 equal visual masses. Okay, next, we're going to talk about when you are painting. So let's finish sketching the rest of this design on here. So what I'm going to try to do when I teach you this painting, I'm going to try to make these flowers have different directions, like they're pointing in different directions. But because we are doing a glass and resin piece, and we're going to be putting these petals in, these flowers are pretty much all facing forward. But we can have them tilt ever so slightly simply by moving the centers over to one side on a couple of them, and putting a few more glass petals on one side of it. Okay. So that's my flowers. Then I'm going to have leaves in here. Leaves are another visual shape, and I can use shape and line to bring attention to my focal point. So here is an important leaf I could put right here, this line, and make a leaf like that. And that's gonna help lead the eye there. Even this leaf over here can point to that one. I left this space here in between these two flowers so that I can create a nice dark area in between here. And very often the eye follows where there's a sharp contrast or an area of darkness. So that's a strategic move to put a dark right there. And I don't know if I did that on my original painting, but we're strategically putting that there. We're going to have a couple of other flowers back here or leaves or whatever that aren't as important. We might even have, again, a couple of buds coming off. They're going to be desaturated colors, so they're not as important visually, and they're going to be lighter in value, so they're not as important visually, so that she gets all the attention. Okay, so we're going to use color, we're going to use line, we're going to use shape. These are all design tools, compositional tools that you can use to really bring home the focal point. That's usually what is missing from your paintings, having a strong focal point. So now I'm going to use line because we've got these stems, right? So another really important aspect to a good painting is to have a leading path, a path that leads the viewer right into the painting. And it's easy to do that on a landscape, but here, this is a still life. How am I going to bring the viewer, how am I going to lead the viewer's eye up to this flower? Well, it's very easy. I can use these stems. The problem with paintings, a repeating thing like a stem shape, is that it's so easy to make them all look exactly the same angle, the same color or whatnot. So I'm going to try to make them different. I'm going to try to make different spacing in between the stems and different angles. Some are going to be straight, some are going to be slightly curved. So contrast is another compositional tool. Contrast and variation. So when you look at my sample painting, I've got really one strong one. I've got one really strong stem. This is the leading path. that leads the viewer's eye in from the bottom, because usually people, believe it or not, your eye follows in from the bottom. So this is going to lead my viewer in. And I've got more repeating stems, but they are not evenly spaced. They are a variety of colors, and they have a different curvature to them. Hopefully you see that. So when I'm planning my sketch, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a main one right here. It kind of went like this, I think. And this is below the water. Above the water, it's going to kind of be a little bit displaced, but maybe it goes like that. So that's a really strong lead in line. Now, of course, it looks really strong right now because it's the only one there. But as soon as I start putting other ones in, and then there's one that kind of goes like this. It comes off from this side. Maybe that's going to come over here. Here's another one here, maybe. Now, look what happened. This and this is almost the same space, but if I put another one next to it, it helps with that problem. Maybe I'll put another one here, here. So we're just going to try to make them look random and different. Here's one maybe we'll put here. Sometimes when you've got two that intersect and touch the bottom, that's called a tangent. We want to try to avoid that. So I just realized this could be a potential problem. I don't want to bring a bunch of attention down here. This is far away from my focal point. So I can't really erase it, but I'm going to keep that in mind. I'm going to watch out for that. So maybe I just need a couple more. And that looks pretty random. That looks pretty good. I think that'll work. Okay, so then I would take this and really try to exactly transfer this design onto my substrate, keeping all those little things in mind. Okay, so back to this. What we did was, when we are painting it, we're going to avoid repeating the exact same size of the shape, the exact same size and shape of leaves and flowers, which is going to be a little bit challenging, right? Because they really are similar size, but we want to, even if we just vary them ever so slightly, it's going to help a lot. So what I can do is I can have one, that's like this, right? The center is right there. I can have another one. Let's say it's like this, and the center is over here. So it's slightly different, right? And then this one here, it's touching right about here. Maybe this one's actually a little bit bigger, and the center is here. Each of these three looks different than the other, right? That is what I'm going to keep in mind all throughout as I'm painting. If I'm painting this one and having fun putting different strokes in here, and then I go to paint this one, I don't want to mindlessly paint it the same as that. I guarantee you're going to do that. You're going to paint it exactly like that one because that's the first one you painted. That's why a lot of times when I'm painting, I'll work on all three at the same time. It helps randomize. Okay, and when I go to paint these other ones, this one's getting cut off, which is good, right? This one's going to get cut off. These are going to be less important color, less beautiful colors. They're going to be a little bit lighter and a little more desaturated, okay? I'm going to have a really dark area right here. Maybe this leaf that's here is going to be nice and dark. And nice and dark in the center here. That's automatically, and when I use really bright saturated colors on this flower, it's really going to pop. It's really going to command all the attention, right? I can still have some bright colors and contrasts in these two flowers, but these other ones over here, I'm going to really just not use the same exact colors. I'm going to use more grayed down colors, and we'll talk about that when we get to the painting. Am I making sense so far? Any questions so far? What I'm trying to stress to you right now is that we're going to avoid repeating the exact same size and shape. Size and shape. We want to make them, we want variation. Don't make them the same. So here's a leaf here, it's pointing this way. I don't want to have the exact same size leaf pointing the exact same direction over here. That just doesn't look right. All I have to do is change the direction of it a little bit, and I'm fine. I don't have to make every single leaf like this. Maybe there's a leaf that's more wide and curved. You know, how many different ways? I mean, you know, maybe it's folded over. Maybe it's got a sharp bend to it like that. You know, it's important to just really think about variation. Okay, so that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to, oops. When we are painting, we're going to avoid repeating the exact same size and the exact same shape of leaves and flowers. Okay, next point. And I've kind of said this already. For the flowers, you're going to try making them face different directions. And I showed you the key to doing that is where you put the center. And when you, if you're looking dead on at a circle, when a flower is pointing right at you, it looks like a circle. When it's tilting away, it becomes an oval, and the center of it is no longer in the center. So I could have a flower looking straight at me. It's like that. But as soon as I turn it, it becomes an oval and the center moves up. If I have a little more weight on the bottom of it, it just gives, there's going to be more on this side of it. And if it's really turned a lot, you know, it's going to look like the center goes up even more until if it were turned away, if it were completely turned the other direction, then I'm going to see the stem coming out of the back of it, right? I can't even see the center stamen at all. So these are all just observational things. I'm not going to have any like this, but okay. So then the next thing, we're going to try to avoid parallel stem lines. If I were doing a landscape, I would try to avoid parallel mountains or parallel hills or parallel, you know, you don't want your lines to all be the same direction. Like this was 3 parallel lines, boom, boom, boom. That is boring, right? And when I put these stems, let's say this is my glass vase, I don't want to have all my stems like this. That would look really bad, right? They're evenly spaced and they're exactly the same. It just doesn't look right. Instead, what I would try to do there, I would try to, first of all, I wouldn't have it smack dab in the center. And I also wouldn't have the top of the vase smack dab in the center. This top of the vase is almost directly in the center. That's not good, in my opinion. If I wanted to do a vertical vase like that, I would put it off center and down a little bit lower. You know, this is just a lot more interesting. And I would try to make my stems, you know, do different things. Random and different. Maybe if this was my grid lines, my rule of third grid lines, maybe what I would try to do would be to have a flower, maybe it'd be up here and it's right on this line. Maybe that's my focal point flower. And then maybe I'd have one coming off. So that's 4. Let's add another one to be odd, 5. And just that simple design, using everything we just talked about. This is a very simple design. This just looks a lot more interesting than this, doesn't it? Just from what I've taught you today, you go from this to this. I hope you see that. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it does. Okay, so now let's go back. Where was I? Back to this. Jane says, good info. Good, I'm glad. Okay, we're going to avoid the parallel stem lines. So when we're looking at my sample painting, I've got one going like, I've got one going like this, one like this, one like that. You know, they all look a little bit different. I didn't do the repeat. That's a good thing. And we're going to avoid the evenly spaced problem. It's so easy for us to mindlessly evenly space things. You just don't want to do that. So your composition goals: a clearly defined focal point using the rule of thirds. That's the number one thing you want to do. It's probably the number one thing that's been missing from your paintings. Right here, boom, clearly defined focal point using the rule of thirds. If you get nothing else from this today, please remember this. The second thing is you want a leading path. You want to lead the viewer into your subject, lead the viewer to that focal point flower, using shapes and colors to get them there. Okay, I'm going to show you that in the videos. Third thing is contrasts, aka otherwise known as variation. You want variation in your shapes, your colors, your textures, and your values. And if you don't know what values are simply how light or dark a color is. So we don't want them all to be the same. We want a variety of dark and light colors. So if I were across the room looking at this, I think that what draws me in is these pops of dark against this vivid, pretty color, you know, these vivid, warm pinks and reds. There's a contrast not only in, how many different contrasts do you see here? How much variation do you see here? We've got variation in color temperature, warms, cools. We've got variation in line from a linear sense. We've got straight, long lines, and we've got round, curved lines. Okay. We've got masses. We've got this mass of curvy, round prettiness. And then we've got these straight, sharp areas of color. So we've got a lot of variation. It makes it interesting. It makes me want to walk across the room and look at this painting a little bit closer. Now, I will say the only thing that I don't really have established on this one, this was more my focal point. I don't think I really drove it home enough, to tell you the truth. And the way that I could improve this painting is to have made, if this one is my focal point, I should have subdued these flowers just a bit more. These shouldn't have as equal of a color saturation as this one. And it isn't necessarily size that makes something dominate. It's usually contrast. It's usually putting contrast. A light against a dark is the foremost tool that you can use to bring attention to a focal point. The other thing is saturation and color temperature, contrasting from what is around it. It's usually contrast that drives home that focal point. So we're going to teach you that in this very important workshop. So that is it, my friends. Talked about the pitfalls. I talked about, I need to take pictures of this, right? Make sure I show you that. So I'm going to sum it up again here. In summary, the thumbnail, it's really important. A thumbnail is your big shape blueprint for the painting. And the reason why you want to do a thumbnail is so that while I'm painting, I'm not having to solve these design problems that come up. I already know I need to be careful about the tangent of the two stems at the bottom. I need to be careful about not making all of my flowers the exact same size. I know all these little things I need to keep in mind while I'm painting so that I can concentrate on how I apply my paint. I can concentrate on that and not have to worry about everything, which makes painting a little bit unsettling and nerve-wracking. If you can find a way to pre-plan and pre-figure out these other things, the design and the color, you're going to have a lot more fun painting. So the other thing is your color mixing practice. And we went through that last night. I went live and did the supplies video. So if you haven't watched the supplies video, I want you to watch that. And at the end, I show you how to mix the colors. If you do the color mixing practice, you're going to feel much more comfortable when you go to actually do your painting. You're going to know how to basically get those color mixes, and you won't have to worry so much. It'll be easier for you. It'll be much easier for you. So by practicing my color mixes, I'm going to have some experience getting different values and different temperatures. We talked a little bit about temperature. So these are cool pinks right next to warm oranges, which makes it very visually exciting, very pleasing for the viewer to have those right next to each other. And they're also automatically different values. And of course, that's what a flower looks like. The reason why flowers are hard to paint is because they're dark, middle, and light values right next to each other, tightly woven into each other. That's what we're going to practice, at least with the basic color mixing, so that I know how to get a nice warm peach and how to get a beautiful cool pink, and which warm peach do I want next to my cool pink. Okay, that's the blueprint for my color plan, if you will, so that while I'm mixing my colors during the painting, I'm not going to be mixing muddy colors, the colors that I don't really want. It's not happenstance. It's something I planned. I put thought into that. And just from that little bit of pre-planning, it's going to turn out better so that I can focus. Again, I can focus on the big picture, putting the paint down where I want to put it and having fun doing so. So tell me what you thought of this training. Tell me what's the one main thing that you got out of this. Terry says, go Aggie, I love this teaching. Thank you. Jane says, rule of thirds. Let me show that. Jane says, rule of thirds. It really helps, doesn't it? Yay. And I know that you knew that before, but hopefully you're seeing a little bit more about rule of thirds. Let me know in the comments. Terry says, yeah, tell me, Terry, what about it that you like most of all, or what stuck out to you? Probably what sticks out to you is what you have been missing in your paintings. All right, I'm going to share a photo of this because I think this turned out really, I mean, this is the main thing. This has it all in here. And isn't this pretty? This little sketch turned out so nice. Donna says rule of thirds. Awesome. Did you not even know about rule of thirds, Donna? Wow. Terry says, I used to not do thumbnail prints, and now I'm really understanding why I need to do it. Ah, that says it all, Terry. Thank you. Drawing a thumbnail. Now you see the importance. A lot of times, a lot of artists, the classes that I've taken, they made such a big deal out of doing those sketches. It's like, oh, I don't have those grayscale markers, and I don't want to take the time to do that. I just want to paint. But again, what happens is you run into these little problems, and we don't necessarily know how to fix them. And by the way, I want to share with you, please, please, please. Oh, here Linda says, I knew about odds, but not thirds for the whole space of the substrate. Oh, okay, good. Good, good, good. What was I going to say? Oh, gosh, I forgot. Oh, as you are painting, as you're doing your painting, please share We all know that it goes through the ugly duckling stage, and your painting doesn't really come together until the very end when you add the highlights. So you have to kind of hold out and just stick it out and have courage and stick it out to the end. Promise me that you're going to do that. I would love for you to share your process photos, even when it's ugly duckling. Share photos and share where you see a potential problem that you're going to fix and how you're going to fix it. If you do that, if you share that, we are all going to learn from you. And that's what this is all about. As a group, we all learn from each other. So, all right. I really enjoyed this. I think I'll share that. I'll share this as like a summary. Was this helpful? Should I share a photo of this? Maybe I should as a reminder. Terry says, yikes, but yes, okay. Here's the thing, total transparency. Our paintings don't look good while we're working on them because we're still figuring out the problems. We're still resolving issues. That's what painting is. Painting is problem solving. Rule of thirds. Was this helpful? And again, this is really important. I want you to be able to take what you learned today and design your own composition like this so that you don't have stuff like this. And again, how many of you have you seen this? How many times have you seen this or this, right? This, I mean, it's okay. But when I did it, I'm like, why would I put a horizontal wide vase on a tall canvas? That makes no sense, right? But yet you see it. You see people doing it every day. So, all right. Who else have I got here? I don't think everybody has commented. If you're still here and you haven't commented, please, please, please tell us what you have been missing on your paintings. Terry wants all of them. Okay. I guess I could do that. Oh, I forgot one more thing. I forgot one more little thing. Another good thing to have to kind of give some sense of stability is to have at least one horizontal flat line, a perfectly straight line. It gives some stability. And we're going to do that with the table that this vase is on. So let me go back to sharing this. If I add a table line, the nice thing about adding a table, let's do it on here on this one first. What I could think about, I can kind of plan, okay, for my background. So let me just quickly kind of do this, right? This is my subject versus background, my visual masses, if you will, right? If I add a table, and again, it doesn't have to be right on the 1/3 line, maybe it's right about here. If this is a glass vase, I wouldn't want to put the water line right there. I'd probably put the water line down here, so then the space from here to here is different from the space from here to here. And I wouldn't want to put it right lined up with that. And I see that a lot of times too. People don't think ahead that, it just doesn't look right to have it lined up with my table. Now that I've got that table drawn on there, perhaps, no, I don't know. Is it going to look better to have a dark value back here or not? Maybe is it going to be better to have the dark value up at the top? Probably if these are light colored flowers, more than likely I want a mid to darker value for my background at the top. And make my table a lighter color. But that's part of the design process too, is planning that. But having this horizontal line gives a sense of stability. It stabilizes it. It gives it like a base. It just makes it more solid, right? So even on ours, which ours is, you know, something like this, right? Ours is like something like this. I'm going to put a table. And now I have the opportunity to add, you know, a little bit more. Maybe if I really want this, and my water line, where was my water line? Like maybe my water line would be here. Oops, that actually looks a little bit like half. So it'll be a little bit lower. Here's my lead in, right? Now, if I make this darker, this vase comes forward and pops a little bit more. So that's another aspect, having a straight line. I don't think I had that on here. That's just like, that would be a like a tip. I don't know where I'd add that. So let me just write this down. Adding a horizontal flat line gives some stability. Even in a landscape, it's a good idea to do that, having at least one area with a straight line. And I think that's it. Okay. Shelley says, still here, painting. Oh, good, you're painting. If we are painting a clear vase, wouldn't the horizontal lines show through the vase? It might. It might, and that's okay if it does. Sometimes that vase water can get a little bit murky, and you can kind of obliterate the background table showing through. I wouldn't worry about that so much. We'll show you how to paint that. How do we make that water line show differently and the water with our color, our values, and our color mixes? So when you look at water, it actually has, it's clear. So really when you're painting water, if you were painting a water droplet, for example, all you're really painting is a highlight on the droplet and a shadow of the droplet, believe it or not, because it's clear. So same thing with when you're painting a water line on a clear vase, you're just painting a highlight and a shadow. And if you go looking at photos, Terry, just go look at photographs. You can go on Unsplash and look up water droplets or a clear vase filled with water or something like that, or glass of water, and just take note of the shadows and the highlights of the water line, and you'll see it. Now that you're really looking for it, you'll see it. All right, my friends, great questions. Any more questions before we sign off for this one? I'll give you another minute or so. These are the pitfalls, right? Pitfalls. These are no, don't do this. Do this. These are the pitfalls of rule of thirds. All right. All right, my friends, I am signing off. This will be put in the videos guide, and I can't wait to start painting with you. Have a great day. Bye.